Good evening. I'm going to call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Tuesday, March 7th, and we do have a quorum present. The first item on the agenda is to consider the minutes of the February 21st, 2023 regular meeting. If there are no additions or corrections, may I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Karen, second by Aaron. Don't know. Motion passes 6-0. The next item is a part of a regular hearing for the final plat of the Waters Ridge Addition Phase 2, lots 4A-R1 and 4A-R2, Block 1, on 4.70 acres under the Charles DeMay survey, abstract number 335. It's currently zoned light industrial, located at 1940 Lake Point Drive, being a replat of the Waters Ridge Addition Phase 2, Lot 4A-R, Block 1. I think it's a 1 or an I can't tell.
Looks like an I.
Block I.
It's block
It does look like an I. Okay, Block I.
Good evening, Commissioners. The replat of the Waters Ridge Addition Phase 2 was submitted on February 6, 2023, and has been reviewed by the staff. Staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission disapprove the replat of Waters Ridge Addition Phase 2 for the deficiencies listed and delegate to the staff the authority to accept and approve the plats once the listed deficiencies are corrected. The approved plat will be brought to the chair for signature.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions for staff on this item? Concerns? Okay. Excuse me. May I have a motion, please?
I move to disapprove the final plot due to deficiencies and delegate to staff the authority to accept and approve the plot once the listed deficiencies are corrected.
Motion by Aram.
Second.
Second by Francis. Vote now. Motion passes 6-0. Next item is the final plat of Greenland Hills Addition, Lot 5R, Block C, on .331 acres out of the J.W. King survey, abstract number 696, zoned single-family residential district. It's located at 142 Parkway Drive, being a replat of Greenland Hills Addition, Lot 5, Block C.
Good evening, Commissioners. The final plat of Greenland Hills Addition, Lot 5R, Block C, was submitted on December 20th, 2021, and was resubmitted under the Unified Development Code. It has been reviewed by staff and meets all requirements found in Article 3 of Lewisville's Unified Development Code. Staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the plat.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions, concerns, anything? If not, may I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve the final plat.
Motion by Francis.
Second.
Second by Robert. Vote now. Motion passes 6-0. The next item is the final plat of Crossroads Center South Addition, lots 1R-3 and 2R, Block B, on 10.096 acres out of the Railroad Company survey, abstract number 180, zoned Medical District, located at 2500 Windhaven Parkway, being a replat of lot 1R-3 and 2R, Block B, Crossroads Center South Addition.
Good evening, Commissioners. The replat of Crossroads Center South Addition was submitted on February 6, 2023, and has been reviewed by staff. Staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission disapprove the replat of Crossroads Center South Addition for the deficiencies listed and delegate to the staff authority to accept and approve the plat once the listed deficiencies are corrected. The approved plat will be brought to the chair for signature.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions, concerns, discussion? If not, may I have a motion, please, on this item?
I'd like to move to disapprove the final plat, Crossroads Center South Edition, for the deficiencies listed. Delegate to staff the ability to accept and approve the plat once the listed deficiencies are corrected.
The motion is by Robert,
Second.
second by Francis. Vote now. Motion passes 6-0. The next item is a public hearing. This public hearing is to consider amending Article 7, uses, parking requirements, supplemental use regulations, and certain distance requirements of the Lewisville Unified Development Code to add supplemental standards for multifamily dwellings on certain streets in the Old Town Mixed Use 2 and Old Town Center zoning districts by adding Section 7.3.22, establishing supplemental use regulations for multifamily dwellings, and amending Exhibit 7.2-3 mixed-use zoning districts to add a reference to these supplemental use requirements.
Good evening, Commissioners. So on the screen, I've got just kind of an excerpt of that exhibit that we'd amend to add a reference. And then the text that would be in that reference, and this text would apply to multifamily dwellings developed in the Old Town Center or the OTMU zoning districts that are fronting on either College Street, Church Street, Main Street, or Mill Street. And so you can see the text here. It says, in the Old Town Center and Old Town Mixed Use 2 zoning districts, the ground floor of all buildings which include multifamily dwellings shall be designed to accommodate non-residential uses for a depth of at least 24 feet facing Main Street, Church Street, College Street, and or Mill Street by meeting the standards below. We actually do have 7 standards. One is that the ceiling height not be less than 12 feet. That's to allow for commercial uses. That there be fire separation in these walls that are designed to separate commercial from residential uses. That the exterior ground floor architecture reflect a storefront design with a minimum 60% glazing. And this vernacular storefront design would be something that the Old Town Design Review Committee would look at and confirm if it meets that standard or not. That there'd be space for future signage on the exterior of the building above the first floor windows. That access to the area designed to accommodate non-residential uses shall meet all applicable accessibility standards for uses, including but not limited to ramps and widths of doors. If it's initially developed just with steps on the front and doorway widths aren't sufficient, that's quite a big deal to go back and change. So they need to be looking at that grading up front to make sure that that would be effective. And then we want to make sure that the ground floor must comply with one of the following. Either we use first floor podiums to have maximum flexibility with what goes on the ground floor, because then you can kind of move walls wherever you'd like to. There's a lot of flexibility there. Or in lieu of that, you could use headers and beams to connect 2 or more adjacent dwelling uses to create a minimum 1,400 square foot area, which is typically 2 units being combined into one space for that. And that's to make sure that we can actually move things around in the building to provide that commercial space. We did send out letters. However, after we sent out the letters while we were preparing for this meeting, we realized that we had inadvertently missed a number of potentially impacted property owners. So staff's recommendation tonight is to continue this public hearing to next week, Thursday, March 16th at 6:30 p.m., where we have sent additional letters to notify those property owners that were erroneously missed so that they have an opportunity to come and speak and be heard. I have only received 1 inquiry about the changes, and they were neutral, neither opposed or they didn't have any opposition to them. I do want to state that I did talk to Commissioner Ryan Conway, as he has a background in architecture, and he had some thoughts that he wanted to provide about making sure that things could be commercial. He had actually suggested adding an additional 3 standards. One, that plumbing services should be designed independent of units above as separate risers, and plumbing from above must offset to allow for future design flexibility. One is electrical services shall be provided up front to accommodate any future retail loads, so making sure that transformers and such are sized appropriately from the get-go. And the last is that the foundation design be a conventional reinforced slab without a post-tension foundation. And the reason for that is if it's a post-tension foundation, you cannot cut into it to provide additional plumbing or sewer that you might need if you're converting to a commercial use, where if it's a conventional reinforced slab, you have more flexibility with that. So with that, staff is here for questions, and we do recommend again that we open the public hearing this evening and continue it to a special called meeting on Thursday, March 16th at 6:30 p.m. here in council chambers.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions?
I have one, and it's basically to clarify things in my mind. I understand that this is basically for commercial, but could those be converted to homes, or if there was a call for it?
Yes, so the idea behind this is you're building it to a standard where you're probably going to put residential in it from day one. You're just going to build it with higher ceilings and a little more glass than you might otherwise, so that in the future, when the market develops further in Old Town, you could move commercial uses in, and that's generally a benefit to the property owner because you get a higher rent. So if the market develops to that point, we want these spaces to be easily convertible so that there's not a fiscal prohibition or a physical prohibition with the way the building's built to allow those commercial uses in the future. So yes, they would build it to these standards, but likely the use from day one would be residential.
And am I clear that the property on College Street is doing that also?
So the Toll Brothers property on College Street is building in flex space, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Is this for new development or existing development?
It would only apply to new development.
New development, okay.
Could it be applied to an older development, or I guess that would depend on how it was built?
So it would apply to anything new that submits after this gets adopted and effective by council. It would apply to those projects. Anything where the permit came in earlier than that would not have to comply with this standard.
Okay. So they'd be grandfathered in to whatever was previously?
Yeah, we'd consider them legal non-conforming.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
You mentioned in the memo that it added extra costs to new development. What's the ballpark percentage on cost that these new standards add?
I don't have a really good ballpark in terms of percentage. I will say that it's standards that I know other cities, we looked at what other cities had done. We looked at what an architecture firm had kind of recommended when it came to doing flex space standards, because what we're really trying to do is make sure that there's not a prohibitive cost when it comes to the conversion later on. And typically, this flex space standards, while they do add cost, it hasn't been prohibitive, and it has allowed folks to develop because they can still get the return from leasing out and from doing their pro forma to lease out those units.
Thank you.
Michelle, how many dwellings were not notified, or do y'all know how many?
Yeah, so we originally notified as property owners. So we originally notified 93, and it's now 157. So we missed about 70 properties. Okay. And the error there was using an outdated zoning map when we were querying to find the correct properties to notify.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And will the week that we're giving them, or the time frame that we're giving the property owners, is that sufficient time?
Yes, we always do a 10-day mailed notice before this meeting, and so we did mail a notice that will be 10 days before the meeting on the 16th.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Michelle. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing and continue it until We have a chance to meet on this again on March 16th, 23 at 6:30 PM in this chamber. I would ask for a vote for a motion to continue this.
Move to continue.
Second.
Motion by Karen, second by Francis. Vote now. Okay, motion passes. This item in public hearing will be continued on the 16th. And final item for the agenda for this evening is adjournment. May I have a motion, please?
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Aram,
Second.
second by Robert. Vote now. Motion passes. We are adjourned.